Richard Langford was a man who seemed to own the world. A billionaire architect, the kind of name written in gold across skyscrapers, boardrooms, and magazine covers. His buildings touched clouds, and his bank account matched the sky. But none of it mattered when life handed him a pain no success could protect him from. His little daughter, Sophie, just 7 years old, lay in a hospital bed fighting a rare immune disease. Doctors used words that felt heavier than grief itself. Only 3 days left. ... Suddenly, the crown of success felt like a burden. The man who designed cities couldn't rebuild his own daughter's fragile heart. Nights felt endless as machine beeps replaced bedtime stories. For the first time in his life, Richard stood powerless, realizing that wealth could create wonders, but it could not pause time or negotiate with fate. Because sometimes the biggest battles are not fought with money, but with hope. He tried everything a level of effort most people can't even imagine. He flew in top specialists from Germany, private treatments from Japan, even experimental therapies from Switzerland that weren't yet available to the public. Hospitals bent their rules, science pushed its limits, and prescriptions stacked like walls of printed desperation. Every morning, Richard woke up believing today would be the day the doctors walked in smiling. And every day ended with the same heavy silence. Machines kept Sophie alive, but nothing seemed powerful enough to heal her. For the first time, Richard felt like a man chasing the wind. The world that once bowed to his decisions suddenly had no answers for him. He signed blank checks without looking at the numbers, whispering to himself that somewhere there had to be a cure money could unlock. But reality stood firm, unshaken, reminding him of a truth he never had to learn before. That morning, Richard walked out of the hospital feeling heavier than ever. The city he had built now felt loud, cold, and unbearably meaningless. And that's when he saw him, a young barefoot boy standing in the middle of the street, holding the hand of a frail little girl sitting in a worn-out wheelchair. The boy's clothes were torn, his knees covered in dust, but his eyes carried a fire life hadn't managed to steal. His name was Noah, a child who owned nothing, yet seemed richer than anyone Richard had ever met. Noah wasn't begging. He wasn't waiting for rescue. He was giving it. He whispered jokes to the sick girl, brushing fears away like dust from her sleeves. She smiled. Not a weak one, an honest, felt from the heart smile. And in that moment, while the world rushed past them, Richard realized something unforgettable. Richard didn't question the universe that day he listened to it. The next morning, despite raised eyebrows and disapproving whispers from hospital staff, he brought Noah to meet Sophie. Noah walked into the sterile white room wearing the same dusty shoes and quiet courage, holding a tiny wilted flower he had picked from the sidewalk. There were no grand introductions, no dramatic speeches, just a soft hi, and in that single word, the room softened. Noah spoke to Sophie like she was not weak, not broken, just someone waiting to smile again. He told her stories of invisible gardens that bloom from laughter, stars that heal tired hearts, and how even small smiles can scare sickness away. Sophie listened, and for the first time in days, her lips curved into something real. Not forced, not fading real. And in that tiny, fragile moment, healing quietly began its journey. Days passed, and something unexplainable began to happen. The machines that once sounded like ticking countdowns now hummed in steady rhythm. The medical charts slowly shifted, oxygen levels climbed. Color returned to Sophie's pale cheeks like dawn reclaiming the dark. The doctors were confused, flipping through reports, searching for logic, science, reason, anything that fit a textbook explanation, but there was none. No miracle drug, no surgical breakthrough, no medical turning point they could claim. The truth stood quietly in a corner of the room, barefoot, holding crayons and stolen smiles. Noah visited every day, delivering tiny treasures of peoples, paper drawings, wild stories, laughter that filled cracks medicine never reached. Richard watched it unfold with disbelief, shaking into belief. Healing wasn't entering through needles or prescriptions. It was arriving in softer ways, in moments shared, in smiles exchanged, in hearts feeling less alone, because some miracles are silent and carried in the hands of love. Richard's life had changed in ways no blueprint could ever predict. When Sophie finally stepped out of that hospital room, not just breathing, but living, he knew the miracle had a name, and it wasn't medicine. He looked at Noah, the boy who owned no address but carried an endless home within his heart, and made a decision that needed no second thought. Noah became family, not through paperwork alone, but through a bond built in silence, struggle, laughter, and healing. The years passed, and the world watched both children grow. Sophie grew stronger, healthier, unshaken by the darkness she once faced. Noah grew taller, but never away from his roots, still humble, still giving, still showing up for the broken before anyone asked. Then one day, standing beside her father and the boy who saved her, Sophie spoke words that echoed far beyond the stage. Miracles don't come from what we have, but from what we give.